And we're continuing to monitor the latest on the bomb blast in New York City. The explosion occurred Saturday night. There's also a second device that was found just several blocks away. All of the 29 people that were injured have been released from the hospital. No motivation has been determined, but officials believe this was an intentional act. CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Jeff Pegues is in Washington. Jeff, any indication of what the feds are looking at? Are they pretty much on board with what we've heard from the NYPD press conference?
Well, yeah, they work very closely with the NYPD in a situation like this. So, yeah, everybody's on the same page with this one, trying to figure out if these three incidents, the one in Seaside Park, also the one in Manhattan, as well as the incident in Minnesota, is there a connection here? Nothing has been ruled out. Obviously, there's a lot of focus on what happened in Manhattan because of the fact that it is Manhattan. It is New York City, such a vibrant area, clearly with millions of people there. But one case that you should really take a closer look at is what's happening in Minnesota and the investigation there. Just to refresh your memory, there was a stabbing there in a mall. A man carried out a stabbing, and according to my sources, as he was doing that, he was asking people if they were Muslim. The ones who replied that they weren't were stabbed. I think that's important based on what we know about ISIS. ISIS has been sending out its propaganda across the globe using social media, encouraging people to carry out attacks where they live. If they can't travel to the battlefields of Syria and Iraq, what ISIS has been telling its sympathizers, its followers to do is to carry out attacks at home where you live. And so the question is, what happened in Minnesota, does that fit into that category? And is there some sort of connection between what happened on the East Coast in New York and in Seaside Park to what happened in Minnesota? And so that's what investigators are looking at. If you look at the big picture, that's what they're looking at right now.
Jeff, intel sources will tell you that lone wolf attacks are always the hardest to catch. We don't know if that's the case, if these were lone wolf attacks in Minnesota, New Jersey, or New York City. But how concerned is law enforcement across the country that there might be more people trying to do this type of thing?
Well, they've been concerned about that for some time now because, as you noted, it is hard to stop something like that from happening because essentially you have people in basements, perhaps, becoming radicalized, and they're doing it online. They're reading messages online, whether they're in some sort of social media forum, and they're becoming radicalized. They're ingesting this ideology. And so law enforcement has talked about this, federal law enforcement especially, at length over the last couple of years. This is a concern of theirs, and that's why there are so many investigations across this country, according to the FBI, in all 50 states, because they have to figure out, and they have to sort of categorize who they are going to investigate first because of the sheer number of cases. And so they have to figure out where on the scale of radicalization, essentially, some of these people that they're looking at fall into. So where can they categorize them? Because investigators can't investigate everybody at the same time. So that speaks to just how many cases they're dealing with right now. And the numbers, according to some congressional sources that I've interviewed, the number of investigations has been going up.
Fascinating. I want to ask you also about the New York City bombs. The one that didn't go off that they found in the secondary search was actually a pressure cooker bomb, Jeff. What does that tell you? We know a pressure cooker was used in the Boston Marathon bombings. Is this coming up on anyone's radar over there?
Well, yes, it does, because, based on where it was found a few blocks away from the other blast, it's going to be on the radar of law enforcement as they try to see if there's any connection here and who may have been behind the attack, especially, or the bombing, especially in New York City. And so, yeah, that device is something that they will be looking at, and we're told that they are looking at closely. But, keep in mind something else. We all want answers, but these investigations don't go from 0 to 60 in a matter of hours. This is a process, and they don't want to rule anything out. They don't want to prejudice the investigation, and so they're starting from zero, essentially. They're starting slowly, building their case, canvassing neighborhoods, interviewing people who knew this man in Minnesota who carried out this attack, interviewing people who may have been in the area of the incident in New York City. They're gathering all their surveillance video from all of these incidents, and they are exploiting whatever evidence they can find to try to get as many clues as possible as to what was the motivation here.
Okay, our Jeff Pegues there in Washington.